Today I'm going to draw up this Italian scene, a photograph taken while in Italy, but I've liked the idea of the archway across the buildings. So because my paper is larger than my photograph, I'm not going to blow it up. I've just marked the edges of the photograph so I can see where it actually is on the paper. And so therefore I can start working from there to actually work out how far things are into the actual scene, such as that fence comes into the scene. Okay, so I've measured the corners of the photograph because this is going to be enlarged, and then just got myself some markers on the edge of the page, like where the actual railing goes to and where it finishes up on the edge. And so from there I can start to work my way in to find out how far in. This is at the point there where it's down on the page, so it goes to about there, so I can mark that. And I know the angle is right because it goes up to that angle there. So how long is it? Measure how long it is, and then I'll be able to find out from the angle then where it goes. So it goes up to here at that angle. So if I just move my pencil, it'll go to about there. And so that gives me the idea of where this is going to go. It's going to travel through that part. Just draw that roughly at this stage. And so that's the start of that area there. Now that has to fit in between that, all that has to fit in. It'll be wider at this end than the other end as it's going up the wall. And so that was the top edge. So the top edge goes back in behind the next part of it, which is that goes out of the picture. So if I put that back, I know that it goes out of the picture at about that angle. So it's out of the picture there and comes into here. So if that is in through there, that comes in. Okay, then it has the gutter. It has the round gutter goes out to that end and then comes down past that, finishes up about there, and now it's a lot smaller. So that'll go into there and then back up in behind. And so that's almost, it's not quite parallel to the other. I know that one is. That one's parallel. This one will be almost parallel. So that'll start to get that in, and that's the fascia was included in the size that I did that. It was from the top to the top, and so the fascia has to go in there as well, and that goes just down underneath that. Okay, so that's the fascia. That's looking rather weak, but that's all right at this stage. I can come back to that as well. So the angle of that, is that right? The angle of that goes to about there on the page. Not too bad. If I put a ruler on it, I probably can see better if I put a ruler down there, and then I can see where it exactly goes. It goes down there, and this one goes there. Okay, so then that's the end of the board there. That can be neater. I can play with that later as well. And that goes back in, up in behind there, a lot stronger. So it's like that direction. That end comes off, and then off I go again. So that's the part of that building. And so that building then goes from there down to how far in on the page. Goes into where that chap's standing, I think, almost where he's standing near his leg. Let's say there. And so that goes in there. And that's where that building will come down to. Okay, that's the building. It should be parallel to this. So just check your ruler and make sure it's reasonably parallel. Not that my photos are straight. But that'll be the edge to that building, and that path will come round to almost the top of the, okay, I don't have a square edge on this, so that comes to there, goes down and has another edge. It has two edges to that. It has a top edge and it has a bottom edge. It has a capping on it. So then I can see that it comes to about the centre of the capping. So that's the direction that the street's going. Okay, so then I'll start on the next building. As I said, I'll tidy this up later. That comes to the top of that, goes straight across. How wide is it? How far apart is it? It's about that far. About that far. Okay, so then it has the next building that's coming down at that angle from the same point. From that point, it's coming down about that angle. Doesn't go as far because the trees are over it as well. So I'll put it to about there. It has the wall comes down from this one, so you don't see much of that, but you see the wall. So what's the height of that? The height goes from the gutter down to the corner. It's formed a corner there. It's about there. It's about there. Okay, so it's coming around and down. There's other stuff going in here. You can go into there apparently. There's a step there and you can go into there. And so that comes down to that point there. So I use the ruler again because I'm sure they're supposed to be straight. That comes down there. Okay, now that has a an edge on it. That comes down that way. Down that way. And yet the other part of the building goes back across that way in the archway. So that's where you see it's up higher, and it goes into a wedge in behind there. I can deal with all this stuff later and do the refining bits and pieces. There's other stuff in there, but you need to chop out a lot of stuff that you don't need in an artwork. It becomes tiresome that's all you're looking as detail and not actually what you want it to represent. Okay, so the archway comes where? Get back to my point of reference, which is there. My archway is down here. And how far up is it from the tape? It's about that far up from the tape. It's about that far up from the tape. Put the mark there. And what's the distance between that and this wall? At the bottom, it's only a very, very narrow area. So maybe this is too wide between the two buildings. 1 and 2. 1 and 2, yes. So that's too wide. So that moves over. This one here moves over to where? Comes down to there. That one moves over. Okay, and so now I've got this to work with. That comes down that way, has a part of it there, goes up higher for this that goes across and up and does that little triangle. So that brings me to here. That brings me to there, which is pretty much right. And where did it end up? Did I measure that? I think I did, but I think I've lost it. Put it back on here. That goes up to there. That's it there. That's the mark, and that's where the archway starts. And how far up does it go? It goes up to about that far past. And the building behind, I won't worry about that. I'm only interested in the archway. And so that should go from about there down to here. Now I'm not going to do it very dark, just so that I don't get too much. So my markers are too far in and I can't see them. So I've got the top and bottom on my page. That's that one there and that one there. That becomes part of the arch. Now the arch actually comes down from up near here, comes down over the corner of that, down through there, across. You don't see much of an arch, just a little bit of an arch to where? To that point. So that's an arch. So my wrist does a beautiful arch. Okay, and then the other arch is here, and that comes to how far up that... something's a bit crooked. I think that line's very, very crooked, which means that I'll have to straighten it because it makes everything else look really weird. So I'll straighten it up first before I move it. I'll straighten it up before I actually change it. Okay, so that's parallel. That's parallel. This is going to be parallel, but even though the markers are not right, I don't care. I just don't want it to look weird. And so that goes. That goes across. That was the flowers coming down on the archway. This is the triangle. Get that back. That goes down. I'll fill this in later, work that out. But that's better if the arch has got a better straight line on it. Where does that go to? Comes up from the paper. Comes up from the paper to about there, where it starts to do the arch. Comes up from the paper to about there, where it starts to do the arch, which is just above that. The flowers are down to there, and then that arch comes and goes to here. So that's where it hangs onto the wall. And so with my wrist sideways, I'll start to form an arch. Now it has a double part to that arch. It has an inner part that you can see there. The building gets rubbed out of the arch. Okay, so now it's got the archway coming in, and this is the arch here. So that goes. That goes. Now there's an arch. Okay, so up to the top here there's a post. Post comes down, comes to the top of that where it comes across here. Comes up again to another post. There's another wall here. Comes down. Must have a great deal of significance there because there's heads. There's two heads on those posts as far as I know. It's hard to see from that, but on my desktop, that doesn't look like a head. Anyway. Okay, so here is a railing. This must be a bit higher, or something's a bit lower. Where does that go? It goes to there. Put that up a bit higher. Comes down to about there where that, I think that goes, that'll do. Okay, so you only see a part of that, so just make out where you see part of it. You've got a top section. I'll go up a little bit higher for this one. And then you've got the railing. Okay, so the railing's coming in at an angle, slight angle. And then it's got the actual pattern in through there. So I'm just going to make that idea of the pattern. I'm not going to do the pattern, that's too fussy. And so this is brickwork, so that won't be exactly straight. There's a bit of a sign on there. There's the fence that comes in. Okay, so let's go around here. We come in through there. We go across the step. We come to a fence. That comes out there. We've got another step somewhere. Where did that go? I'll put that back and have a look and see what it was. That's that step. That's that. So the bottom one is the step. The bottom one is the step. And The top one was the railing. If it comes in at that angle. The top one's the railing. So that'll go onto there and back again. Okay, so there's a bin that we're not putting in. We don't do bins, I don't think. This is all rock, so that's not going to be as straight as that later. Okay, so that's got a fair bit of the drawing. This can go up to the top. There's some sort of monument thing there. Don't know what it is. I don't even know whether it's very necessary, just to sort of put something up there. I'll make it round like the other one. And this one has the round, has a bit of a neck thing on it, and then something round there, just to put something in there. Okay, so from there, I'll concentrate and do some of the finer work, but I'll do that after I get started with the colour. I'm starting out with Naples Yellow and June Brilliance number 2, and so they're Italian colours, and I've also mixed them with the Naples Yellow. I've also added just a touch of the June Brilliance to the yellow to make it a little bit less bright, and I've also added to the June Brilliance number 2, I've also added a little bit of Rose Madder to it to actually make it more in a pinker tone. So they're quite wet, and so they'll be actually used coming down the page for the buildings on this side. And so I'm ignoring the actual archway at the moment. These colours can go over the archway, that won't hurt a great deal. So I'll just pick up a sable brush, something that's a little bit sable brush that will hold water. Otherwise I'll be painting with, if I use a synthetic, it won't hold enough water to let it run. And so the first colour I'm going to pick up will be the, I'll put it up there. I don't know whether you can see it there. No, you can't see it. If I bring that down a little bit, maybe bring over this palette so you can see it. That's better. And so now I've picked up the June Brilliance number 2, and I'll just put that along this gutter and up there to start with. So that's just put some of the colour in there, and that section there will just be that colour, and then the other is a little bit of white, and then it's dark up in here, but I'll put the yellow up in there. Now I'm not going to wash the brush, I'm just going to leave the brush as it is and start to bring the colours in. And so those colours will be lighter and darker as I go. So this will go up underneath there, and that's way too dark, and that paper will be on a slant so that it will come downhill. So that'll go up into there. Leave the white on that section. The others can go into each other, don't care what they do. That'll come back up into here and water. And so that'll just give it that shiny, shiny look of the Naples Yellow, because these colours have a small amount of gouache in them. That'll go over there, forget what's there, just bring the paint down. That'll come down, don't care where it goes, I'll just let it go down and let it do its own thing. Don't care where it goes, I'll just cover that and let it run. It can just come down into there. So the colours can all mould together. That has to go across there a bit neater to leave that white. And then you've just got the colours running down the page. Now, if I do that, it'll run off the page. If I do that, it comes off the page. So the next colour is the pinky colour. Now, you notice I started that first, so that this can have water in behind here, and it won't have much colour then. That'll be just water down in through there. Some of that can run out, don't care what it does, because this is actually all going to run. And so now I've got the pinker colour up the back, and the pinker colour comes up the top. I'll wash the brush and start to come in behind the pink. That'll go in through here. There's darks above it, so I'll forget those, don't worry about those. That'll come down in through here. I'll use water as I go over there. There's no need to get too much colour over that. comes in over, and then you've got the greys coming down there into the path. So I'll just let it go. Just bring those colours in. I'll just let it do its own thing. Do some shapes, do some colours, don't care. Let those go together. And remember, I wet that. So now if I come back with a synthetic brush, because it was wet, it's protected it. So when I actually come back with a brush that's not blue, that will leave some light in between there. Okay, if it gathers up anywhere, you can move it around. The colours now have other colours going in through there. Not going to worry too much about that in there. Okay, so the steps and everything goes into the greys. So I'll leave that to dry and then come back with the greys. Now that's still wet, that's still quite wet, but I'm going to continue on with the greys and other colours. So if I pick up the June Brilliance pinky colour and put that on here, I can just keep adding colours to that. And I was talking about grey, so I've got ultramarine and burnt sienna will make a grey, and it's a blue grey really, and that will go on, and plenty of water because it's going to be darker colour and it's just going to do its own thing. I'll leave the light on it, leave some bits, don't sort of try and paint the whole thing. The same with the rocks over here, they have a pinky look to start with, so I'll start with that pink and then add on to that. I'm only going to go to there at this stage. That'll come down and just water and start to add colours. So I've got burnt sienna. That just does a dirty grey. I'll then come over to the edge, come back into the blues, let it do its own thing, join those two together. That can have some of the brown in through that as well, just little bits to sort of get that to move. Okay, so now we've got some blue and paint going on there that can go across a little bit stronger. So now I can paint into things as well. So this is shaded in behind here. So if I pick up the blue, I can put that in behind there and that will shade. Even though it's shaded bits and pieces, I don't care about that. It's just water. It's not going to do anything. It's just moving around. I'll get a little bit of rose madder, which I used in the other colour, and add that to some of these. And so that can come down through here and then add the other colours to it. Add the brown, the grey, the colours. The steps went across that way. I'll leave this watermark down the bottom here. I'll leave that do its own thing. I don't want to make a big deal out of that. The road across here is different colours, but it's too wet at the moment to pick it up. So I'm just going to go over to Indethrin and just pick up some Indethrin and come over to this doorway here and come out across it and come up behind here and come across that. So that's sort of leaving some light coming through that area through there and some of the colours through here. I don't want to muck that up. I just want that to have something looking like it's coming towards you. That'll do. And the colours can mix on there and do its own thing. It's got a little bit of light and dark through here. Now there's windows and bits and pieces on there. I've left the sky till later and I've left the grey till later. The reason being that I can actually get other stuff to come over that later. And so now I'm going to pick up a synthetic, and because it's so wet, it's time that I can actually put some greenery. So I've got ultramarine, French ultramarine and Winsor yellow, and that will give me something that will start to get some greenery on here. Some dark and light. Make it look like it's trailing. Comes down off the edge of that area through there. Gets a little bit smaller over here. And I'll get the darks in there in a tick. And that'll come in through here. You'll get trails. Trails down through there. That's lighter. Now in this area here where I want people to actually look at it, I'm going to put some red. some brilliant red. Just something that looks like it's got flowers in through there. Trails. Muck it up so it's not exactly what you can see. It's just got something in there. Start working into darks. The bricks. So there's bits and pieces on the bricks that have light and dark. And so I've got burnt sienna, a bit of water and burnt sienna, and I'll change that up and get just some lights and darks in through the bricks. Change it so that I've got some blue in the bricks. Just bits and pieces. Now that'll run, so I'll just move it round so it'll run slightly. Some of that'll come up. Some of it'll come down. I just don't want it to be that obvious. It looks better when it's just running. Okay, the bridge. The bridge is dark, which is ultramarine and burnt sienna. And if I dry that out a little bit, of course this will go lighter later when it dries. It's got the dark on the edge of the bridge. It's got a little bit of dark over that side as well, and it's rough, so that'll make it be rough. That's the edge to it up there. I'll get the edge in some places and not in others. That'll join up. Start with the edge again over that building. It's got a little bit black, so I'll go back to brown. That's where it's attached to that. Make sure that's nice and strong. Some in between. So it's just got that rough look to it. Some up into here. Thought that was blue, but it's not. It'll get some depth up into here. That'll make it look like it's running down a little bit more. Need to get rid of some of this white through there. And the brickwork. The brickwork needs bits and pieces between it, so I'll leave that for a tick. Just get some direction in bits of the edge of it. Now we had the path that went across. The path went across there. The path went across here somewhere. Must have been about there. So that gives you the path. This is very dark underneath that railing, so I'll start to darken that even stronger again. And there's bricks in that. So I've got blue bricks. I've got brown bricks. There's a railing along the top of it, so I'll just keep going till that railing appears. You don't see it over the other side so much. You just see it going behind there. Don't know what that is, but I'll fill it in and make that edge. That's all. I just wanted that light edge. So here, over here to this one, some of that needs to be picked up as well. That has bricks along it. It also has a light edge. Now that light edge I can get back later. This is dark in behind there. So if it's too wet, I'll just keep brushing, because as you brush, it'll stay there eventually. Okay, so what else have we got here? That's getting very colourful. Don't like the green so much. I'm not a very green person. Don't like green. So I'll pick up some other colours. Change it and get some pink in it. A little bit of pink. Probably just up through there. I can get that more later. Okay, so we're starting to get stronger areas in it. So this is going to recede because it's softer, and this is going to be stronger as it goes back. Now that's the start of it, And I'll leave that now and then let it dry and then come back to it. I'm going to spray a little bit of kitchen salt, just a little bit on there, and you can see that it will start to work. As it dries, it'll actually work. If you actually use salt on an artwork, it needs to be sealed when you finish. It's time to paint the sky, and I've got a mixture of cobalt blue with a little bit of cerulean in it, just to make it a little bit different. So I've got it there on the palette. Now, to paint the sky, I'm going to turn it upside down, because then I'm painting towards myself and I can see what I'm painting. And I can bring the palette over so you can see the palette. And so I've got the colour there. And I know that the sky is going to be lighter. I mix with a sable brush, and I'm going to work with a square brush. The reason being that brushing on that will stop it from stopping in the medium paper and causing that marking that happens in it. So I'll wet the brush to start with and just wet the paper above where I want it to go. Remember, we've got this white section that stays white. That's got more water on the brush now, and that will stay lighter down there. That goes completely over the fence because the fence is grey and it's darker. So that's how I'm judging what's going to happen. Now with the square brush, I can get any corners on a building. And so now I'm going to pick up the pigment and start in the blue. But I've got some room to come down and just get that to come down into that area and not leave just a straight line on it. That'll come right up to there and continue on. Now it's getting darker because I've picked up more pigment. Make sure you get those lines really straight. And because it's going straight on the paper without moving it a great deal, it'll stay quite smooth. I can see a line in it about there, but if I keep brushing, there's more comes off the brush. Now, as I come up to here, I'll get the brush to go sideways to get that edge, and then back up into here and get the darker colour onto here. Now, if I keep adding dark here, of course the sky appears to be darker. Now the sky has a dark line there where I just put that extra on. I won't touch the brush because if I move the brush and do something with it, it's going to change it, but that will shade it back down. And so I'll clean it off the tape. That's the danger point, is it coming off the tape and marking that. It could have a little bit bluer behind the actual fence, but you will see that the sky goes behind there. Just touched it there and made a mess, so I'll just put some more paint over there. I'm just going to put a bit behind there. Can't help it. I just want it to be a little bit darker behind the fence. Alright, so then that gets the sky on that looks really, really smooth without too many marks in it. I can still see a mark there, so if I brush that way, that mark will probably come out of it. Watch it while it dries, because it can move while it's drying. And if you wanted to actually move a blue colour and do that, if it actually waterfalls, it leaves more of a mark in your sky. So you're better off just to leave it to lay flat. Turn it around so you can have a look and see what it looks like. But it's just got the light blue going up there. Now that has to dry, and then I'll come back for the fence and the other details and start to find the rest of the scene. Now, what you need to know is where is the actual dark on the wall, and draw that up. There's a little bit of a step there that goes into a light. So when this goes on, there's a line that'll go across that way and there, and leave that light. So it's dark up in here, light, and then what I need to do is to lay the path down. So I'm not going to paint the whole path, but I'm going to paint it up to where I need to show people where the edge to the wall is, and that will be dark underneath the step. And then down around the fence, there's a fence here, and the fence there, the one thing I will do is, while I've got the square shader, is to find the top of the fence, and the top of the fence has an edge on it there. So that will just come off very easily. and the top of the fence goes over that way, just to sort of give it some sort of angle of where that's going. It'll have dark down in there later, and probably just a little bit of the path down here to sort of make that stand out. So you can see parts of it, but you can't see the whole scene. I'm not going to paint the whole scene up perfectly. The fence will go on, some of the detail will go up into here, and that'll be about it. I'm not going to play with this a great deal because I want it just to have that look of the paint doing the work for you, not you painting it, it's painted itself. That needs to dry. It's time to draw up the rest of the scene, and I'll just have a look at the drain pipe. There's a drain pipe coming down here somewhere, out there, and that drain pipe will come down, turn around the bend. It'll have some streaks in it, just a little bit. Don't try and do too much. I'll have to turn that to get the angle of my wrist, and that's important in drawing, is to get the angle that your wrist is actually moving. Otherwise things are not as they should be with the shape. That goes up. There's a dark underneath that, so I'm just going to draw to the darks and actually put the darks in there. That's the clip that hangs onto the gutter. That's the gutter there. There's part of a window, parts of windows here, part of the door. I'm not doing all the detail. Part of the lines up here for the two buildings. Remember I took the top off that, just put a little bit of dark in behind. Found the steps. Just decided on the blue that will come in on the path and around these bricks that are here, and then I'll actually finally do something with a couple of these bricks in through here, and just find a couple of the larger ones that would be around about there. And so I'll just go between the bricks and the blocks of stone. I'll actually come up and just do the intersections of those. I'm not going to do much more. And just find that coming up there. There'll be a smaller one. Don't do them all the same size. Do something interesting. So that's sort of where they're going. That'll be the corner there. Now I'm trying this paper out, so that's why I've sort of got some salt work to different work on here, just to see the difference in the artwork. Right, so I always start at the back and work towards the front. So the back section is just the pipes up here. They're in a bit of a reddy brown colour, so I'll use something just a alizarin crimson and a red brown it is. I use quite a lot of those colours, and I won't use it very deep, so I'll just put water on the brush and I'll see what that actually does to see if it's too dark, too light. Just get that in next to the railing. Okay, that'll do. And then this one's a little bit darker, so I'm always using my ultramarine and burnt sienna to darken colours. Now it's a different colour, so it goes over to where the railing is, there and down, and I'll just let it go. Just don't try too hard and get the end of that. So I'll let that go by just coming back up it and take some off it. That'll just get a darker value in there. Then it's got up underneath the eaves on this one. I'll use the same colours, but just vary the amount of dark in it. Now it's gone into a grey purple. And so it has an extra line in through there, so whether I want to get that or not, I'll come down one way. That finishes there, and that's left that light edge. And the point of my brush is the straight line. That has to point that way. So that comes back up. Get the straight line of the building. Sort of straight. It was straight. Now, turn it back around and have a look at it. It's looking patchy. It's because of the colour I've used. So if it looks patchy, it needs water in it. That'll stop it from being patchy. It'll just let it run and do its own thing. That sort of softens paint off. Okay, so I'm going to go into the windows a little bit blue, but the downpipes and that, they'll continue in this colour. So that attaches here somewhere, comes down around. And you notice I'm using the Escoda. It's a big brush, but it's got a very nice point on it. Okay, that'll come down the bottom. You notice I didn't join that up. I'm not going to join that. I've just done part of it. So your eye has to do some work. It's dark up underneath that. I've got a different shape to that. Will I bother? Probably not. I'll just put some dark on the bottom of it and then come up into, get some shape in there. Just put that shape in there, that's all. And up underneath the eaves there is just the same colour. I'll leave the pipe. So you only need to paint what you need to paint. If that's light, I don't need to paint it. I can paint it from where it starts to turn around the corner, which is here. Just start to paint it there and leave it as the stripes, put some colour on it. And this is not a detailed artwork. It shouldn't have that much detail on it that you're looking for all the artwork detail, because it's not that sort of work. It'll be classed as modern, contemporary modern, because of the fact of using salt. I mean, they never used salt in the original days of painting. Okay, so I'm going to the windows and I'm going to use the blue with a bit of the pink in it that I used for the sky. And so that has just the colour in the window edge, and that's it. Doesn't get anything more than that. Down in these, I'll leave the edges a different colour and just bring it over to the edge of that. Just get a bit of that, a bit at the bottom. There's two windows, there's another one there. And so that just disappears into there. Don't want to come too far over the actual bridge, because I want the bridge to stand out. Now it'll have green shutters on it, and that'll bring some of the green in that's everywhere else. And I'll just put it in while it's wet. That'll go down the edge, down there, a little bit there. And I might put a little bit in this, just a little bit down the edge of that one. So you just see part of the windows. The door, same thing. Actually, I'll get the colour of the alizarin crimson and the, I think it's brown madder, the colour that I've got there. And that'll be in the door. Just let it streak down. Take that out. Take the edge of the paint where it started to work into there. And let that just go. It can stay as it is. And now it's time to get down the path. So ultramarine and burnt sienna will make a grey. And so that's burnt sienna needs to come in to make it more grey. And that goes along the wall, which is there. And gets that top line on the wall. It's a little bit dark, but I can always lighten it. That goes down the wall. Then it goes down further there. Then it goes round the corner, so I'll come from the corner back that way. And that's just getting a little bit of colour on that. Needs to come down that line a lot neater, so I need to turn it to do that. Okay, so now we're ready for the path, and the path was done in the blues. I've just got a little bit of indethrin in it. Oh no, I haven't. That's not indethrin. That's a bit of white. Okay, indethrin's over here, so I picked that up and put it in some of the white. And that goes around the bricks. So this is not a straight line there. That's in behind there. There's light because that comes through there and then comes down. So now I'm actually doing the path. That goes over the actual saltwork. Gets lighter blue now. More water. Okay, so while I've got that wet, I can actually accentuate the darks in that as soon as I get it on. And it's going flat across. The reason for that is to keep the path looking flat. That's just there, that's the light. Now the light comes through there because there's a step there. I don't like the way the blue is run down there. Don't like that, so I'll take that back just a fraction. And then the lip. So the lip can be dark, it's ultramarine and burnt sienna. And the lip is, yeah, got to get the brush to turn around to the point. That's the lip to the step there. There's the lip to the step here. And that can be really dark, so I'll get much more on my brush to get that in. Because I'm coming closer, so I can get more paint in there. And that's got to come out. Across the path. That's dry there, so I've got to be careful. Around the edge of this, I love the colour that's coming through there, so I only need to accentuate this in a couple of places. It's probably down here. I need to see the edge to the wall there. Get it straight, which I didn't. Again, turn it the rate that I need it to go to get that line straight, and then get it to come out. Don't want to go over that because that's so pretty. The colours in there. That'll go in through there. Now the paper's buckled and that makes it a little bit harder to see what's going on, but that's all right. So now the path here is around those rocks. So this has to be lighter in the front than behind. So that gets some dark on it. A little bit of dark in there. And all I'm doing is finding that edge. As rough as it is, I find that edge. Around the edge there, and then it can come out apart across the path. That shows me that the ground is flat. Looks like there's steps now because there's actual marks in it. That'll come out of here quite dark, so I'll come to this dry area now and I can get that on dark. Don't want that edge, so that can go. Don't want to do too much there. Okay, so I'll come back and get that neater later. Edges. The grey up here. Now there's a water spot there. If I suck it up a little bit, that's fine. But if I dab it, I'll get a white spot in my sky. Okay, grey. Grey is ultramarine and burnt sienna. In this palette, I'll put it there. That'll make a light grey. When I start to paint up the fence. Now I'm going to put a little bit of alizarin crimson in that. Everything seems to have a pinky tone on what I'm looking at. And so now that becomes the fence. So the fence has just the posts, a post, one post. Now it's too dark, but that's all right. I'll get that in a minute. A railing across, and down a post. So I'm not actually doing anything other than brush marks at this stage. Dry the brush. Get that edge by just wetting it. There's something up there, I'm not sure what that is, so I'll just do an edge to it, just an edge. There's another one up here, same thing, it's a bit square, but I don't need it to be absolutely square, just put something on it and put the post down. And so now I've got the rest of the fence. So if I wet that, it'll just be light and dark. If I wet that, that will give me the bottom section to it. And if I wet down there, I'll get the edge, which I think I need a sharper edge up there. Okay, so then we've got the, it's got a fancy section through here. And so it's got a bolster, it's got a circular thing and then down. It's got a bolster, the circular thing and down. Bolster, circular thing, down. Bolster, circular thing, down. And so all I've done is just done part of what I could see instead of the whole story. If they're not straight, I don't care. Okay, so we're looking rather soft, we're looking into the landscape, you can see it going back into the darks up there. The building behind here will have to be dark too. So I picked up the blue, and I'll just find, oh, that's the wrong one, that's the one that's got grass in it. Back over here to the purpley colour, and just get that wall to be darker down there. That can disappear down that anyway. That leaves some light here that I can play with later. The steps have dark along the edge of them and dark on the top edge of the step. There's another one here, so it gets dark underneath the step. And then the line on top of the step. Okay. Now, do I do anything else with that? Possibly don't need to. I need to get some areas to have a little bit more definition, so I could actually come around the edge of the door and just get that edge. That will just tidy it up if I get the edge with the point of the brush. And then with water, just touch it, wash the brush first, just touch it and let it go into that colour. So it just gives it a bit of definition. The same with round the windows, some dark in the window there, some dark in the window there. That just picks up the lines as well. Makes it more interesting than not painted at all. Water behind it, so let the water do the work for you. And they'd be shutters. So with the green, I'll just make the note that they're like a shutter. They don't need to be perfect. The edge of the other window, this is green now. I've just picked up green, so that's what it's going to have on it. It does have a line across there, so I'll just do part of that as well, just a little bit of it. Although it looks a little bit like a cross, and I don't want that. I'll just take that back. Just gets that line. Okay, underneath the eaves is some sections through there. That didn't go dark enough. I'll just pick up some other paint. Just a couple of sections in that. Too dark. I don't want much detail. That's better. Just something to take it out. Light grey. A couple of lines in that. A couple of lines in the actual bend in the pipe. That stays white. It stays white, but it's not neat. I like to be neat when I paint. As much as it's a rough artwork, I still want it to be neat. But I don't want to outline everything either. Okay, back to the bricks. That'll be a very fine rigger. It'll have ultramarine and burnt sienna, and it's a browny sort of colour. And so I'll start to come in behind some of these bricks. Now this can be lightened, but to start with I'll get it on. Don't do the whole thing, just do the bricks. Have a bigger gap between that one, and you're making the brick shape. You're not making the gap, you're making the bricks shaping through there. They'll go into the wall. So you'll have the concrete between the wall. So then I made a smaller one just to sort of make it so it's not exactly the same everywhere. This will have just bits bits of parts of bricks that are not there. Okay, so I'll see some bricks going up just to make them so it's not just a straight line and nothing else. So there'll be a brick up through there. There'll be a bit of a brick there. Make some smaller bricks there. So now you're seeing it at random. You're seeing just parts of that to show you that that's the brick wall. And down the bottom, there's some bricks down here that will go sideways. They'll be just sort of sections of brick that they've actually piled on top of each other in that manner. They're just different shapes. Especially through that white section. We'll go down to the path. That's the path there. Okay, so in this section here, there's a bit of a gate in there, a bit of a paling gate or something like that. That's the corner. And in through here, there's some sort of gate. Just put that in, just so that there's something there. I think there's greenery in there as well with a shape. It's got a shape of a roof. Just in through there. And so if I just do that much of it, that's about enough to show that it's there. And then it can have some greenery on it. What else do we need? That can stay. There's greenery over here. I'll just come down around this section here and do a little bit of work on that. A little bit of something to sort of hide the pencil lines. It doesn't need anything with detail, so I'll just take that back. It just needs to be soft up there. Didn't like that. So even if you put something in, you can still take it back out. So that's why you don't need to be really worried about what's there, because it can always be changed. I did that on one side of those, but we just neaten them up just a fraction. Just so you see part of the shadow side of that pylon there. Can't do that now. A shadow side on this. Don't want to use shadow side on that. Probably still need that line down there to cover the pencil. There could be something up there. Could be something up there on that. Just a mark, just something so it's not bland. It's not just that sitting there with nothing else on it. Alright, now I'm going back down here to a smaller Escoda, and I'm going to start dropping in some of the greenery. There's some bush down here that covers just this section there. Ultramarine and burnt sienna, but I'll put some purple in first. Try some of the colours that I had in through there. I had alizarin crimson, I had the blues and the pinks. So I'm just going to put that in the bush to start with. That's going to go over here and have a bush coming into the scene. And what that's going to do is give me a little bit more foreground colour. I'll put indesirin in there. I won't go to purple because if I do this, I'll get purple anyway. Just some colours in through there. And that goes down into here and covers up where the path is. Just be careful of the shape of this. I want it to be a better shape. Now it's ultramarine and Winsor yellow. And I'll start to get some greenery in there. And so out on the edges of that, I'll start to get a bit of green coming in. That's a dark green, but that's all right. That's because everything else is lighter. Have a look at what I'm actually creating. So don't just go straight round it into here and back round the bottom. So really sort of just getting colour on the bush. bit more water to pick up more paint. That'll have greenery down through here. Over that step. Still got all the colours showing through in part. Now I'll come back with some Winsor yellow. With the green in it, of course. That'll give me some light green as well. And bubbles. It's alright. See all the colours in it. Anchor it to the page Indethrin. Indethrin on top of that will anchor it to the page and give me light and dark in through that bush. I'm using the point of the brush. Leave those colours up there like that. And then possibly could have a little bit of some branches and bits and pieces through that. And there's a bit of a railing over here. Now what that's doing is giving me a foreground. Without that, I don't have a foreground. I can still see the bricks through that. That's got to go. Can't see the bricks through the tree because the tree is more solid. So I've taken that out and I'm having a look at this, and it's just a fence, and it's coming towards you this way and going out up this way. Okay, so the angle of that is probably a little bit more than what the actual, it comes all the way up here. Am I going to put that in just for the sake of it? Possibly. So it goes up to about there. It comes down to the corner of that, so it needs to move over here. Over to there. And then comes out along the fence. Okay, it has a couple of rails on it. It has one rail here. One rail there. One down the bottom. Now my brush is just about finished with that colour, so I'll actually change it over now, and I've got the other colours on it, and it's a very fine fence. And so what I'll do is just hit it and let the brush do what it's doing and only do what I actually touch. Now if I don't like it, I just take it out. I'll do a smaller one now. Oops, crooked. That one's got to go. To let it go, you can actually touch it fairly quickly, but that didn't take it off. I don't want to wash the brush, so I'll go and get another brush. I've got the bigger Escoda. That just comes out. Dry the paper. Then I can keep going. Well, that's the plan anyway. And that needs another one there. You notice I hit and miss a couple of times until I hit the paper. That can come down there and get pretty solid down there, back to where I was. That'll do. And so you've got the look of a railing fence, but it's not actually a railing fence until maybe it needs a little bit more work on it. Doesn't look so good if it's too hit and miss. I'm just filling in some of it, not all of it. Don't like it that much. And so what I'll do is wash over it and just let it go into the colour that's there. That'll show it as solid now instead of being opaque. Don't particularly like it. So if I don't like it, the way to deal with it is to let it dry. Don't keep working on something that you're not happy with. Let it dry and come back to it. After reviewing my artwork, I've taken a photo that's actually the original photo before I started to make changes to what I'd already painted. And so the changes were to add a little bit more dark green to the actual bush, and these bricks, they are way too prominent. So what I've done is just watered over those bricks and just made them go into the background. You can still see some of the sections in them. The other thing that needs to be addressed is the light coming through here. That needs to be closed off, and that would be ultramarine and burnt sienna would actually do just a browny sort of colour through there, and that would just, I need more blue in it to get it more in the colours that I had there originally. That'll be better. To cut that off from the wall so that the wall shows up, and then that goes across there and closes that line up there that's showing, and you shouldn't have that because the light coming through there. The wall behind the actual there's a little section there that's got a roof on it. The wall behind that, I've just picked up some of the colour of the wall that's behind it and just put some of that in there just to match that wall up so that you can see that that attaches to there. And so now you see that it's the bottom section to that. And so it probably needs a roof on there, but because that's wet, I'll just leave that for a moment. So other places that I've had a look at the original, the grey at the top of the wall here is way too light on the original. And so then I've just picked up the grey. My grey's a bit dirty now, so I'll just wash it just a little bit more and push it out of the way. And then come back with ultramarine and burnt sienna, and that always makes a really great grey. A blue grey, a brown grey, and goes from one colour to the other. So I've actually made it a blue grey because it's grey up here, and just with water, just washed over this and just come back over it to form sections of it that are darker than others. And so that's just come down and darkened that, and then I've come down there with a pointer brush, which is this. This brush is fabulous for that. It's an Escoda, but I've just come down there and gone around and down. That's all I've done, is just brought that round, and it's only the look of the painting. You're not painting everything as is. Some of the fences, I've actually done a wash over this fence to take a little bit of the white out of it, and underneath the steps so that it's got that shading on the steps. The wash was already on here, the light's coming through here. I probably just need the roof on that, and I'll use just a burnt sienna sort of colour. It's still grey, it's just a dirty grey, but that'll just fill that in so that you can see that that's just going through there and down behind the building. Okay, if it went over the edge there, I've got a couple of options. I need to get that lighter on that edge, which I can do later. And also I either get a tissue and pick that corner up, or I actually wait till it dries and then lift it. It's much easier to lift when it's dry. So if I put a tissue along there and just went like that, it just takes it off what you're looking at. So I either make that darker later or make that lighter, one or the other. And so then I've just come through and put a wash over this fence, and that's basically all I've done to touch it. Now the paint's gone there and left a mark on that. I'll leave it. I won't actually go back and change everything and manipulate it, because this artwork is less painted than painted. There's not a great deal of paint on it. The buildings just had their wash and just the corners of different bits and pieces. There's a bit of a line there that's left, and that's the edge to the window, so it probably would be green. It's just down the actual there's shutters down here, so I'll just put that on, but not necessary to do a great deal. Even just to do that is enough. This fence ended up a little bit green. I didn't intend it to be green to start with, but a lot of the time I don't clean my brush, and if I don't clean my brush I get a much more complex colour. So if I just bring that down there to put something on it and then just wash over it, you'd never know that I did that and brought it down into the edge of the railing. It could come down to the middle of the railing actually, but I've just put it to the edge so it looks like it's inside. And it's a great idea, as I said, to take the photograph on your phone, put it beside your artwork and decide what do you need to do to actually finish off an artwork. It shows you a great deal more by a photograph or putting it up somewhere and looking at it for a week or so before you come back and do something with it. I hope you've enjoyed that.